I know I'm a bit late to the party, but I still wanted to share my thoughts on the upcoming Total War Warhammer DLC, Realm of the Wood Elves. As you might have guessed from the title, this DLC is all about the Wood Elves. Realm of the Wood Elves draws close comparisons to the Call of the Beastmen DLC in the way of content. Let's start by taking a general look at said content. The Realm of the Wood Elves brings us the Wood Elves as a playable faction in both the Grand Campaign as well as a mini-campaign by the name of Seasons and Revelations. The Wood Elves will have two legendary lords to start with, the demigod Orion and the ancient tree man Durfu. They also feature a unique army roster which is limited based on which of the two legendary lords you choose. The Wood Elves are the first faction in the game to be able to conquer any region on the map without the use of mods, and they also have a unique wonder-based campaign victory condition. Let's go into a little more detail, starting with the mini-campaign. The Season of Revelation will take place in Athol-Loren and the surrounding duchies of Bretonnia. In the mini-campaign, you are tasked with uniting Athol-Loren whilst dealing with Bretonnian incursions at first, and beastmen led by Warlord Morgur later. I quite enjoyed the An Eye for an Eye campaign and have no reason to believe this will be any worse. If anything, it's a nice little introduction to the Wood Elves to those less acquainted with the lore like myself. Let's talk about the legendary lords and their units next. First of all, let me say this. No matter which legendary lord you choose, you will be able to field every single Wood Elf unit, but some will be harder to obtain than others, thus the limitation I mentioned before. The Realm of the Wood Elves DLC introduces a new resource called Amber. This resource is gained in several ways and used in others. To gain Amber, you'll need to take regions as well as set up Azrai lookouts in the regions that you take. Amber is spent in several ways. For example, Orion is able to recruit Wood Elves units freely but has to pay extra Amber for Woodland Spirit units, and Durfu is able to recruit Woodland Spirit units freely but has to pay extra Amber for Wood Elf units. I think this is quite a neat idea, but we'll have to see how exactly it works in practice. Beyond this, each legendary lord has some unique skill trees, with Orion being able to specialize in improving the many bow units in the Wood Elves roster, and Durfu similarly specializes in improving the Woodland Spirit units. He also has access to the lore of beasts, allowing him to summon manticores into battle. Not unique, but still pretty useful. Taking a look at the general roster for the Wood Elves, we can see a heavy focus on ranged units, both infantry as well as cavalry. The phrase glass cannon seems to pop up just about everywhere to describe the Wood Elves roster, meaning their units are incredibly strong offensively, but rather weak defensively. My guess is that the Wood Elves will have to be microed effectively in order to do well, but if you can pull that off, you'll be able to do loads of damage while taking very little. Moving on to the new lords and heroes. The new lords are Glade Lords and Ancient Tree Men, with the former being able to use ranged as well as melee attacks in combat. The Glade Lords skill tree are designed in a similar way, with both their personal combat skill trees as well as their battle trees focusing on either ranged or melee. The Ancient Tree Men are spellcasters that have access to the lore of beasts. They also have unique skills that improve the treekin units in their army. The new heroes are Spellslingers, Branch Wraiths and Waystalkers. Without going into too much detail, the Spellslingers can be compared to the Empire's Wizards, the Branch Wraiths can be compared to the Vampire Count's Vampire, and the Waystalkers can be compared to the Empire Witch Hunters. I don't think it's worth going into detail, since we don't know too much about the heroes yet, and usually they're almost the same as the heroes we've seen before, using the same abilities but with a different color. When it comes to the campaign, I think the Wood Elves are a very interesting topic. As I mentioned before, the Wood Elves can conquer any region on the map. Holds, settlements, even the regions of Norsca, which no other faction in the game has been able to do up to now. However, most conquered regions will have very limited building options. Only the regions in your home province will be able to build all Wood Elf buildings, and thus they have 10 building slots each, rather than the usual 6 and 4. Being able to conquer anywhere is important because you gain Amber from taking more regions, so the more regions you can take, the more Amber you will earn. As I understand it, the Wood Elves have no victory conditions other than getting their wonder-like building, the Oak of Ages, to tier 5. However, you'll need to spend Amber in order to upgrade it. Amber is a finite resource and thus it will be important to manage it correctly. You don't want to spend too much Amber on recruiting units or unlocking technology and find out you don't have enough to upgrade the Oak of Ages, meaning you can't finish your campaign. Every time you upgrade the Oak of Ages you will gain increasing bonuses, and upon reaching tier 5 the Battle of the Great Oak will take place. A multi-stage assault on your wonder led by beastmen and chaos hordes that you must defeat in order to win the campaign. Lastly, a quick word on the Wood Elf Council. This can be compared to the offices of the Empire but far deeper. Rather than the requirement of offices being based on the levels of your generals, you will need to build certain buildings in order to unlock offices. In turn, the rewards for putting your lords in those offices will be much larger than those of the Empire offices. As I said in the beginning of the video, this DLC seems to take a similar path to that of the Call of the Beastmen DLC, which I'm totally fine with. I'm excited to play a new faction that specializes in archery, an aspect that I thought deserved some love. Most of the ranged units we've seen so far are all fairly similar with a slightly different coat, but the Wood Elves are bound to change things up a little. The new mini-campaign should be fun too. Regular campaigns can take quite a while to finish, so I'm a big fan of the shorter mini-campaigns. I think the introduction of a new resource is exciting. I just hope they don't make it even more rare on Legendary difficulty. There's plenty of artificial difficulties Legendary difficulty already has to deal with, and I don't think having a stricter limit on an already limited resource has to be one of those. All in all, I'm excited for this DLC. The introduction of a new faction is infinitely more exciting than a few regiments of renown and a legendary lord or two. That is gonna do it for this video. Let me know what you think of the upcoming Realm of the Wood Elves DLC in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, hope you've enjoyed, have a good day and goodbye.